So, the year was 1850. The 12th President of the United States of America, Zachary Taylor, has just suddenly passed away due to a stomach disease. The Vice President has now assumed the position of President. Millard Fillmore is now the 13th President of the United States. He held this position from 1850 to 1853, where he lost re-election. Millard Fillmore was a member of the Whig Party. The Whig Party held a conservative ideology and was actually created as an opposition to President Andrew Jackson. It is also considered the anti-Jacksonian Party. Now, before becoming the vice president, Fillmore had experience as a lawyer, as well as experience in the New York State Office and the U.S. House of Representatives. President Fillmore was the last president to ever not be a part of either the Democratic or Republican Party. Fillmore was also the only president by succession through either resignation or death to ever not have assumed the cabinet of his predecessor, meaning that he needed to quickly nominate an entirely new presidential cabinet. Now, during this time, domestic affairs were not all easy. Just a few years after the Mexican-American War, much of the land annexed from Mexico was still stateless and the borders were unclear. As well as being pre-Civil War America, slavery was still an issue that was yet to be solved. Texas and New Mexico were starting to get aggressive over their borders. Utah and New Mexico were yet to have a strong government. California's status as either a slave state or a free state was undetermined, and the southern states were outraged over slaves escaping to the north. Now, this takes us to the Compromise of 1850, signed into law by President Fillmore in September of 1850. This bill established borders around Texas, provided government for the territories of New Mexico and Utah. It admitted California as a free state and amended the Fugitive Slave Act. The Fugitive Slave Act basically states that escaped slaves must be returned to their owner, including extradition from the free states. Domestic affairs aren't the only thing the president has to deal with, though. As an emerging power, the United States needs to be on good terms with its foreign peers. The biggest accomplishment in foreign relations was President Fillmore's and Secretary of State Daniel Webster's accomplishments in Japan. For 220 years, Japan was completely an isolationist nation. Nearly all contact outside the island was prohibited. Fillmore and Webster sent Commodore Matthew Perry to lead an expedition to Japan. This led to the establishment of diplomacy between Japan and the West, which opened new trade between the nations. The First Lady during the Fillmore administration was Abigail Fillmore. Abigail had a love for books and libraries. From the article, The Heart of the Fillmore Presidency, Abigail Powers Fillmore and the White House Library, it states, the first presidential couple to rise from poverty. Millard and Abigail Fillmore possessed little formal schooling. Libraries provided their primary education. Now, this love for libraries led to them establishing the White House Library, because when they first entered the White House, not a single book belonged to it. And now, to this day, the White House Library is home to over 1,700 books.